It's
ready. It's live on Discord too. It's okay.
Okay, we are live now.
Good. Hi everyone. Welcome to the short lesson. My name is Marlene, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you. We're waiting for people to come live. I'm really happy to be here. And today will be, last week we covered already the first basics of blockchain. So today we will continue with this topic, which is it's a bit hard to understand. So that's why we decided to do a few lessons. And welcome everybody, and I'm so happy that you all can join. So let me share my presentation. Okay, let's start the presentation. So we have 20 minutes to go over some topics of blockchain. So just to give you a quick recap of what we saw last week, if you want to go to details, you can watch the replay. But just to refresh a bit your memory, we went over a few definitions of blockchain. And the one that we will use today is a digital database or ledger distributed among peer-to-peer network. We talked about the history and the origin of blockchain. We know that Bitcoin was one of the first currencies that brought this technology to us, and it's evolved a lot from there. And we see how it evolved over time. And it has at the beginning, the main use of blockchain was currencies. It has developed into smart contracts, decentralized apps, decentralized finance, and many, many more to come. And finally, we went over the 5 properties of blockchain. Just to remind you, it's distributed, encrypted, historical, immutable, and inclusive and transparent. So that's just a quick overview to refresh your memory. And what are we going to look at today? So I want to go over why is blockchain so hard to understand, and what can we learn today? So yeah, just to give you both perspectives, blockchain it's a very in-depth topic, and it requires a lot of technical knowledge. And that doesn't mean that we cannot learn how to use it. So we will go through that. So why is blockchain so hard to understand? So some of the technical skills required to understand blockchain are distributed systems and networking, cryptography, data structures, and advanced programming language. So yeah, a lot of people who are in the blockchain, they have a lot of programming knowledge, and so this is why it has a lot of skills that need to be developed over time. So what does these things mean? We can understand a bit what they are. So the first one, distributed systems and networking. Blockchain technology is distributed. It's a distributed ledger. So we need to understand how, as we had explained, peer-to-peer network works. You have to understand the core mechanism of blockchain. And what was started with Bitcoin was a proof of work. And it's with different currencies, it has developed into different ones, for example, proof of stake and other ones. So yeah, these are our concepts that are you have to understand the basics of them to really understand the technology behind. Cryptography. I touched a bit on this last lesson, how it has historical reference from weapons and war during army, how strategic people communicated between each other at the time where there was a physical barrier or physical space between teams. So and you have to the cryptography nowadays with the technologies, in the computer, you have to know that you have hash functions and a lot of good mathematical skills to go into this field and read the different cryptographies. And this is something that is played in the blockchain as encryption and message integrity. Next, we have data structure. So blockchain is a specific form of database. There's storage of information, there's transfer of information, connection between different databases, and with the ledgers, they're distributed between different users. So, and there's security between all of these processes. So when people who are working on the technology behind the blockchain have to be aware of the different data structures. Some of them, for example, list, hash maps, graphs, search trees. So as we say, this is very specific skills that we need to know. And finally, you don't only need basic programming skills, you need advanced programming skills. For all full transparency here, I'm not a developer, and I've done some basic programming courses, but very, very basic. So as it says here, even the very, very basic is maybe not enough to fully work as a developer in the blockchain. You really have to develop the advanced skills. However, I want to use my example where I'm not a developer and I can still understand how blockchain is working. So I don't want to discourage anyone to just because they don't have the programming skills or the developer skills, mathematical data, you can still learn the blockchain. There's a lot of courses out there for other people who might be interested in, they have maybe done some basic programming courses. And nowadays you can find quite a few courses that take people who have basic programming skills, and they will help you develop more advanced skills specifically in blockchain. And these are becoming more open to the public. We have a partner that we will announce to the community that we're very excited about, who does exactly this. If people who have a bit of basic knowledge, they will take these people and they would really integrate their skills and make them advance in the blockchain. So stay tuned for this partnership announcement. Sorry. Okay, so it was a bit of condensed data information to say, yes, the blockchain, it's a bit scary if you don't have an in-depth technical background, but let's dive into what we can understand. So yeah, what can we understand today? So to explain today how blockchain works, I want to use an example. And it's December, it's holiday season in many parts of the world. I think most of the world, we have different types of holidays. So let's use an example today with this. Let's imagine we have a holiday party and you have 3 friends. So we will use a real life example of how the blockchain technology works and how some of its applications. Like this, you can integrate some of the information of how blockchain is working. So we have 3 friends, Ashley, Mary, and Sam. They're going to a holiday party. However, it's a very exclusive party. And specifically, there's some VIP passes that you have to pay for in advance. So the holiday party is towards mid to end December, but the VIP passes are sold at the beginning of December. So on the 2nd of December, the VIP passes are come out to sale. However, Sam, the girl in the yellow dress, knows that the passes they're sold like this. So she will not take risk to not have her friends come with her to the party. So what she will do, she will buy her own pass, and she will buy the pass to her and her 2 friends, Ashley and Mary. So Mary pays for the 3 tickets, and that's normal. Her friends and her can come to the holiday party on a VIP access. And so, yeah, but you know, as normal friendships go, whether it's friendships or even work-wise, someone does another thing for you, you might want to pay them back. So in this case, her friends want to pay Sam back. So However, we know these are millennial generations. They don't necessarily carry cash anymore in their bags, especially for a party. So how can they pay her back? There's a few ways that have typically been done to pay back someone. So you can do bank transfers, wire transfers, as we call them. Um, you can write checks, but a lot of people nowadays don't necessarily have a check wallet at home. I know there's been some statistics that some people have never written a check, and you have some even online applications that have been around for a few years, PayPal, different ones that you can do transfer between friends, between different accounts. So what does this mean is that to pay back Sam, they have to go through either a bank or an application, or a check is still a bank. So what can be some challenges or problems that arise? The first one is the famous transaction transfer charges from the bank. If you happen to have the same bank, sometimes to do a transfer is free, but a lot of times there's still a charge behind doing a transaction. And if you can do a transaction, maybe you have a technical issue with the bank. Let's say, for example, that the same day Mary is buying her parents' gifts for holidays, so she already spent the amount of money for the day that in her bank account she's allowed to spend. So she cannot do the transfer. It takes time. She needs to wait for another day or to pass the limit of when she can do a transfer. And there's also always a risk of getting hacked. So this is where blockchain technology comes in, and it really looks at these problems and tries to solve a lot of these problems. So how is it working? So we are looking at the cryptocurrency, which is based on the blockchain technology. What are some of the characteristics that we already covered? Blockchain is immune to counterfeiting. That meaning you cannot give a fake bill. They don't require central authority, so they don't require this going to the bank or another company to do a transaction, and they're protected by very strong and complex encryption algorithms. Okay, so let's look at what happened. We have first Mary, who will do a crypto transaction to Sam. So she goes to her wallet, her crypto wallet, which is based on blockchain, and she will transfer the money to Sam. So when she does this, I will not say a specific quantity, because the value of what coin today can be very different in a few months. So let's just say that she takes one of her cryptocurrencies that she owns, and she transfers the amount that the ticket is worth to her friend Sam. So when she does this, there's a record that is created in the form of a block. So the transaction, we can say it's stored in a block. And then all the transaction details that went through this for this transaction, time, date, user, everything is stored in this block and is stored permanently. So that's the first transaction. Secondly, we have the second friend, Ashley, and she will do also a transaction. So again, her transaction is now stored in another block, and all the details of the transaction are permanently stored in this block. Okay, let's look. So now Sam received a transaction from both of her friends. Let's look at the overall picture. So both transactions went to Sam. So Sam received the equivalent of the 2 tickets from each one of her friends. So that's the first thing. It's done. There was no need to go through a third party like a bank. It was just a direct transaction. So each transaction is in a block, and each transaction holds the details of the transaction, and it also holds how much cryptocurrency is left in the wallet of each one of her friends. So these blocks really store all the information and is traced, all the history, time, everything is traced. So what is this creating? This is creating a blockchain. Why? So each block is linked to each other as each of them takes reference from the previous one for the cryptocurrency that the friend owns. So that means that when Ashley transferred her currency, a block was created, but since it's linked to how much she has left in her wallet, it creates a link with each other. And then with Sam, she also received the same amount from Mary, and it creates a link between the three transactions. So this chain of records or blocks is called a ledger, and these are connected between each other. How does this look like then? So we have these transactions happening at the same time between the wallets of the friends. They're all recorded, and what this is creating is this ledger. And then this ledger, each friend has a copy of this ledger. So this is called the decentralized. In the decentralized system, each user, each friend has a copy of the ledger of the transaction. So because they were done at the same time to the same wallet, Ashley has a copy in of the ledger, Mary has a copy, and Sam has a copy. So this ledger is shared, and this what the proper name to say this is a publicly distributed ledger. So that's why each one of them has a copy. And when it comes to hackers, how is this protected from hackers? Well, since each friend has a copy of this ledger, of the same ledger, if a hacker tries to erase one of them, they cannot, because it's copied on all the on each ledger, so they cannot just take one transaction and erase it. It's all encrypted in different public ledgers, so they cannot just erase one because you can find the trace of the other ones. So the copies cannot be erased or changed. And all the data in this ledger is in the blocks is encrypted by very complex algorithms. So it's very, very tough to hack. So to summarize a bit, if this is to put everything back together, the reason why we call this technology blockchain is a collection of record. As I said, each transaction, it gets recorded in each block. That's why it's called block, and it's recorded transaction, recorded data. And when the transactions are happening between users, they are linked to each other. So there's this safety between the different users that are recording each other's transaction. And it's very strong, resistant to alteration, and it's protected using very complex cryptography. So let's just go over how these work. We already had a session about public and private keys, but we will just, since this is kind of touching upon that, I will just go briefly on how this is playing a role. However, if you want to have a full session about it, go back to one of the first videos about public and private keys. I think it was a session with Ledger that discussed really in depth how these keys are working. But just to kind of relate the public and private keys to how blockchain is working, a public chain, just to remind you, it's an address that is shared with others. So this is the wallet that Mary shares with Sam. It's like an email address. You can share it with others. You have your private key, which is a unique address that only the user have access to. Can also be considered like a private password. So the transaction is passed through hashing encryption algorithm. So the transaction between Mary to Sam is encrypted by a hashtag, an algorithm. And what Mary's private key does is like it's digitally signing the transaction. And then the private key only is known to Mary. But once Sam receives a transaction, she can use her own private key to decrypt the transaction. So this is how the private and public keys help the communication between the blocks, between the transactions, and they add the security component to them for the encryption and decryption transactions. So this is how it kind of all comes together. I hope it was clear. Let's start with Q&A. We have 20 minutes, so I made it easy for you guys today. I made a multiple choice. So here's the question. What is the concept of blockchain that ensures data cannot be altered by any of the users within the network? A, public distributed ledger. B, proof of work. C, proof of stake. And D, hash encryption. We will give a prize to the first person who answered this on our Educational Hub channel on the Discord. And I will also note down the question and the four multiple choice. Like this, you can have access to them. Okay, and thank you for listening. Next week, we will do a final lesson on blockchain to look at the different applications. And we will do a summary of what we learned in 2020 as well. I hope you all have a wonderful day. See you on the next one. Bye.